Hello, paper crafters. My name is Juanette, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from the United States. Thank you for joining me today at my YouTube channel, Juanette's Paper Crafts. Today we are going to be making these cute little 2.5 by 2.5 by 2 inch little boxes that are perfect for Christmas gifts. I plan to make them for my grandchildren and children, putting them in their stockings with maybe a little bit of money in there or some other kind of treat. And the nice thing about these is they were very easy and quick to make. Now, I've seen other people make boxes similar to this, but I wanted it to be fairly enforced, so I ended up putting designer series paper layered over it just to give it a little bit more stability. Now, the paper that I used for this project is from the holiday catalog. It is called Brightly Gleaming Sweet. It's found on page 30 of the holiday catalog. And besides the paper, I also use the Star Designer Elements and realized as I was tying the bow, I wish I had bought that Merry Christmas ribbon. Now this is a quick pick of the paper. It is double-sided, 12 by 12, and the colors in the paper are Mossy Meadow, Night of Navy, Pretty Peacock, Very Vanilla, and the copper foil. And on that one side, they are a little bit more of what I would call on the plain side because I love me some sparkle, and it's sparkle on the other side with that copper foiling. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? I love that. Beautiful Christmas paper with those holly berries. That could even be for a birthday. It doesn't need to be like Christmas. And even that one, that's what I made the first box out of. Then those would be specifically for Christmas with those baubles. And it has all the colors in it. And then today I'm going to be using that Night of Navy with the stars. I also used the Delightful Tag Topper Punch. And then I wasn't sure whether I would use the Night of Navy color or the Delicata for stamping the to and from. I did use those Star Designer Elements. And then again, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to use that Night of Navy ribbon or the copper trim. And I end up using that copper trim. Now for the to and from, I pulled out one of my paper pumpkin stamp sets. It's from the Be Mine Valentine January 2019 set, and you can see that little to and from is just the perfect size, nice and small. Now, the supplies you will need is 2 pieces of 1/4 inch Designer Series paper and about 2 inches long. We're going to be trimming it down so it doesn't really matter. And then you're going to need, instead of that 2-inch piece, it should be maybe 4 inches by 1.5 inches, and that's for our topper. Then you will need 1 piece of Designer Series paper that's 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 square. Then 7 pieces of, again, the pattern paper that's 2 1/4 by 1 3/4. And then for my box base, I used Very Vanilla, and what you will need is a piece that is 11 inches by 6.5. So along the 11-inch side, you are going to score at 2, at 4.5, at 6.5, and again at 9. Then you're going to rotate your paper around, and on the short side, you're going to score at 2 inches and 4.5. And this is what you'll have. You'll have 3 areas that are square and then 2 that are rectangle. So you're going to fold and burnish all of those score lines. And then now we're going to start with our cutting. So again, you have 3 squares and 2 rectangles. So on your first cut line, you're going to cut up to the first score line and then take a little wedge off of both sides. And that is your square piece. Then you're going to leave the rectangle alone, but then again on the square, you're going to cut up again to the score line and do a little wedge out of both sides. You will cut up on that rectangle piece, but you will not take wedges out of them. And then on that last little square, again, cut up to the score line and then take small wedges out of both sides. Then turn it over, or turn it around, I mean, and do exactly the same thing. Wedges on the square sides, and then just up to the score line on the rectangle sides. And when I was trying to find a small sentiment for this tag topper, I used Evernote. And some of you may not know what that is, but in my next video tutorial, I'm going to show you how fantastic that program is for keeping track of what stamp sets, die sets, and supplies you have. So again, along the squares, they're notched, the rectangles are straight cuts. And I can see on that one little score line, it needs to be trimmed off. So I just take my scissors and trim that one piece off. So now we're going to start doing some gluing. And you're going to take one in. You're going to bring the outer tab inside, which is the square tabs, and you're going to glue them to the inside of the rectangle tabs. So just take a little bit of liquid glue. You could also use tear and tape if you would like, but I like liquid glue like mini crafters just because it gives you a little bit of wiggle room if you don't have your paper just perfect. And make sure that you bring your edges up to nice corners. I couldn't think of the word. It'll come to me in a little bit. Help me out with the comments. What term am I using? Right angles. There you go. And apply a little bit of liquid glue, and then that is the bottom of our box. And it is the thick, Very Vanilla cardstock, but again, I wanted layers over it so that it would be a little bit more sturdy of a box. So now you're going to take the other two square flaps and glue them to the inside of the other rectangles, and that will be the top of our box. Again, bringing those right angles together so they're nice and neat. Go in on all your sides and really press down on that glue so it adheres well. And then there is our box. So now we're going to do a little bit of decorating. So the first thing that we're going to adhere down is the piece of Designer Series paper that is square, 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Just apply a little bit of liquid glue, and here I make sure that I'm gluing it to the top of the box and not the bottom of the box. And this measurement gives you a nice little border all the way around your pattern paper. Now those stars can either be a copper color or a gold color. On my last one, I used a little bit of a gold ribbon and it still matched beautifully. So now we're going to start adhering our rectangle pieces. Apply your liquid glue to the back of it. You will have 7 of these. And as I lay this piece of pattern paper down, I realize that it isn't as straight as I would like it to be. So I'm trying to finagle to bring that right side up a little bit, and it just will not push up. And I left this part of the video in just as example of why our Stampin' Up paper is just so fantastic and such a high quality. When I pull it up to readjust the whole piece of paper and then apply liquid glue back to it and reapply it so that it lays very nice and straight with a good border all along. After I lay it down, you cannot even tell that I pulled it up. And sometimes when you buy the less expensive paper that are in some of our craft stores, it is not of the same high quality that Stampin' Up paper is, and if you were going to try to do that, the whole paper would just tear up. And now look at that closely. You cannot even tell that I pulled that up. So then I adhered all the other rectangle pieces around the box. Then I realized as I was opening up the first one that it was a little difficult to do, so I took our 1/2 inch circle punch and then just punched out a little notch, which would make a nice little area for your thumb to fit in so that the box would be a little bit easier to open up. Then I took our Delightful Tag topper punch, and the nice thing about this punch is it will give you a topper that is either 2 inches, 1.5, or 1 inch. And I decided on the 1.5 inch. I just punched out the top there. And like I said, it is a little bit longer than what I will need, but it made it easy for me to hold on to it so that I could put it into the punch easily. So now I'm going to stamp our to and from using our Stamparatus. And again, a lot of times And I would say actually most of the time I use the Stamparatus as opposed to stamping blocks because I'm always afraid when I'm working on a project that I might mess it up by not stamping it correctly. And if you use your Stamparatus, it will always stamp perfectly if you have to stamp it twice. And you can see that I use the Night of Navy as opposed to that Delicata ink. Then I took a paper trimmer and cut it down to 2¼ inches. Now, on my next order, I am ordering our new Stampin' Up! Trimmer, and I cannot wait. I've heard so many fantastic reviews about it that the cutting is just like cutting butter or slicing butter. Oh, so back to the topper. So you're going to take your little 1/4 inch pieces of designer series paper that was left over. You're going to glue one to the bottom of your tag, flip it over, and glue the other one. And again, those are a little bit long than what we need, but it's no problem. You're just going to take your paper snips and snip those ends off. So now I'm going to tie a bow using our copper trim. Now, I am not the best bow tire. I can start an IV on a newborn, crying, moving, 6-pound baby with very little trouble. But tying a bow, I get all thumbs and fingers in the way and have a little bit of a problem. I'm learning, and I watch video tutorials to try to learn how to do it better. So then I have specific scissors just for ribbons so that they will stay nice and sharp. And I keep that little piece of red ribbon tied around them so that I know those are my ribbon scissors. Then I bring in my trusty hemostats. You could use tweezers, but I like my little hemostats that clip down quite nicely and tight. Slip that tag through the ribbon and tie a fair bow. I suppose whoever the recipient is for this gift, they won't really care, but you know us crafters, we want it perfect. Then again, I just snip off the edges of the ribbon. Then I brought in one of those little stars, the star designer elements, and put one right up at the top there. And there's my box completed. However, I see a little bit of white edge on that tag, so I just trim it off. Thank you so much for joining me on my video tutorial of these boxes. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And if you would like any of the supplies, please go to my online store, which is up there on the left-hand corner. And on the right-hand corner is the host code for November. Again, thank you so much for joining me and have fun crafting. Goodbye.